Hi, I'm Cassie, and I'm going to walk you through question 15 of the AAMC official physics question pack. So I really love this question. So it's the third question related to passage 3 about the Doppler effect. And essentially, if you've already watched my videos on the last two questions, this question is asking nothing new. And this is super common on the MCAT. A lot of times a passage will ask about the same concept, just in different ways with different wording. And if you understand that concept, you can easily breeze through these questions. So in this case, what is this question asking? Well, it's saying the speed of the jet flying away is increasing. What happens to the distance between adjacent peaks of the wave? What is that? If we were to replace that whole phrase, distance between adjacent peaks of the transmitted wave, we could replace all of that just with wavelength. So the MCAT does this all the time. They take a term we know what it is. Everyone knows what wavelength is, but then they describe it instead of just using the term to confuse you, right? So be on the lookout for the MCAT doing that, so you can pick up on that. So here it's just asking about what happens according to the Doppler effect when two objects are getting farther apart. Because, of course, as the speed of the jet flying away from the receiver increases, the objects are getting farther apart. Well, if we go back to our quintessential Doppler effect example, if you're in your car and you're driving and an ambulance is getting closer to you, well, then the perceived frequency is going to increase, right? Because you hear that siren here, that siren sounds higher pitched the closer it gets to you. But of course, if that ambulance is getting farther apart from your car, then the perceived frequency of that siren decreases. And that's what's happening in this case, right? We're talking about a case where two objects are getting farther apart. So in other words, our perceived frequency, which we can represent as, our delta F, decreases. Now, what's our relationship between frequency and wavelength? Well, we reviewed in the last questions that frequency and wavelength are related by this classic MCAT equation you absolutely need to know. Make sure it's in your equation deck. Velocity equals frequency times lambda, where lambda is wavelength. So if our frequency decreases, what do we know what must happen to our lambda, our wavelength, in order to keep velocity the same? Well, our perceived wavelength must increase. Okay, so the answer is going to be C here. Our perceived wavelength increases. Now, of course, they could have flipped this question. They could have asked about frequency instead. If they had asked about what would happen to our perceived frequency as two objects get farther apart, then the answer would be that our perceived frequency decreases. Okay, so whenever you're doing these questions, try to not only make sure you get to the correct answer, but also try to flip the question around and ask yourself different variations of the question to test if you're really understanding the concept. So I hope this helps. If it helps, give the video a like, and please subscribe to my channel for more content like this.